Добър вечер, почитувани гледачи. Аз съм Драган Милосавлjević, а вие следите емисията Заспиј ако можеш. Вечерва имаме прилично ретка можност да разговараме со професор од Соединетите американски држави, поточно од Тексас, кој што веќе трета година поред е дел од предавачите на школата за млади лидери на председателот Иванов. Се работи за професорот Роберт Стеркен, кој што предава политички науки повеќе од 20 години и сметам дека навистина има што да каже. Professor Sterken, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoy your time in Macedonia.
Yes, this is my third time to Macedonia, and I love coming to Macedonia. Yeah, it's a privilege and a joy. It really
Privilege
is.
and joy.
Yes.
What about your impression from the school?
Well, my impression. I think that the service that the participants get is it's a real gift in a lot of ways. They come away. The participants come away with getting to meet people from all over the place, getting to hear from scholars and from diplomats and world leaders, and it's a great gift for them to participate in, to be part of. Yeah.
I was listening to your class today. You were talking about violence, about promoting peace, and about power. So let's start with this abstract, let's say, question. What is power, in fact? Is it like when you have too much money, or when you have political leadership, or when you have some kind of ideology, and then people support your ideology?
What is power? Is that your question? It's a good question. And it's one that we in political science deal with all the time. Power is fundamental, and it's a fundamental element of the way that we move and shape our societies. And it comes in numbers of different ways, as you just listed. Power comes in different shapes. Wealth is obviously part of power. Violence can be a form of power. Numbers of people can be powerful. Ideologies can obviously be powerful. Ideas are incredibly powerful. Can't kill an idea, for example.
Some ideas live for 1,000 years. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So those are all good examples, and I think the use of those power is what we study in politics, and it's what, once you understand that, like what is power and how is it used, you understand a lot of why things occur the way they do, what's happening in different conflicts, what's occurring in different situations. But underscoring all that is usually power, almost always power.
I heard your class. It was quite extraordinary, I might say, and the students were, let's say, very satisfied. So you were talking about violence and how to confront violence with, let's say, some sort of positive peace, you say. But let's be honest, we live in a very violent world. Not from now, from ever. But let's say in the last 2 years we have big conflicts in the Middle East and in Ukraine. And in my personal opinion, political leaders don't even care about peace. They all talk about wars. So how can we promote peace and not violence in a situation when leaders, it seems like, want the war?
I question a little bit the premise that that's what they want. I think there certainly are world leaders who consider and think about war as a tool for something that they want to promote and engage in. But usually it's for some end or for some reason, for some means that they're doing that. I think how do you promote a change in that is a real good question, and I think that's what I was talking about today. I think moving and doing things and shaping the culture, and mostly I think working with young people who are coming up into leadership positions, changing the narrative about the way they interact with other cultures and other people and the way that those interactions are, and the way that they're framing what that is I think the way that you move us towards a less violent approach into a more peaceful approach.
Yeah, I understand that, but in this very moment, it's not like that.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, all world is in some kind of brick of big war. Everybody talk about some great conflict, about World War III.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too much to say like that, but people are talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's certainly people will talk about it that way. You know, there are people who argue that it's just a realist world. This is how we are. This is who we are as a people, as humans. This is the way we are. But I don't think that history bears that out. I think that I mean, you can certainly look at history and see successive wars and conflicts, but over time, we're getting better at that. As humans, we're getting less violent. Fewer civilians are killed in war. Fewer soldiers are killed in war. So we humans we're moving in that general aspirational direction. Maybe. I think that the conflicts occur for different reasons. Greed, business reasons, acquisition of resources. There's a long list of different reasons for conflicts occurring. But I think, generally speaking, humans tend to prefer times of harmony over times when there's fire in their neighborhoods, when there's bombs falling in their world. And so I think that preference, you can see it in numbers of people and how they act and the way they do things, and that's a real power. And perhaps your question about like the world seems like it's on fire, I don't know that. I mean, yes, there certainly are significant conflicts. The Pope is calling for a day of peace for that very reason. And
other great minds of the
and I think that's entirely. I think that's what I would say needs to happen, is that those men and women in those leadership roles around the world, like the Pope and others, who involve people who are sometimes out of government, are really good at this sort of thing, and calling for a different narrative and a different way of thinking about that.
Yeah, but do the real political leaders, like the presidents and chief of staffs of the armies, are enough responsible to understand the seriousness of the situation?
Did you say they're not responsible, or not? What did you say? I'm sorry.
No, they are aware of all that. So let's say if we are on that level when war in bigger conflict can start, let's say any day, do you think that these people who are really in power,
as opposed to being a person who's calling from the outside, like a church leader or something,
they are? Don't you think that they will be smart to say no? We are too close to destroying, so we must stop this. Do you understand?
Yes.
Are they responsible
would they stop? Is that the question?
Yeah. Well, that's the real question, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a good question, and what you hope is that the cooler heads prevail, and that the men and women who are in those decision-making roles and those decision-making rooms are willing to step back and to think about the consequences of their actions. I assume that's what's happened in Israel right now. I assume that they're in the Situation Room, trying to decide what is an appropriate or what's a response. And I think in their minds, there's probably around the table 15 people who are trying to decide, and people putting in different inputs about what to do. And some of it is for political reasons, some of it's for show, some of it's for strategic reasons. But I hope, I'm with you on this, I hope that those guys are considering the long-range consequences of what it means to do something in those ways. And I think, world leaders throughout time have had to make those decisions and make those decisions about which way to go.
Let's move a little bit in Europe. In my opinion, in this very moment, nobody in Europe talk about peace. Nevertheless, do you support Ukraine or Russia? Of course, most of the Europe is on the side of Ukraine because it was the victim of the war.
Right.
But nobody talk about, I don't know, some kind of peace negotiations. They all talk about how to give more weapon and to continue with the fight.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's not very common for Europe. We believe here that Europe is the place when never be any more war. So now it's happening, and everybody talks about war, not about peace.
Yeah, in a situation where a country is attacked, and you've got a situation that you have between Russia and Ukraine. That's a situation where to call for peace is almost to call for the victim to give up something. And I understand that the desire for peace, but at the same time you're saying, look, let Russia have what it wants in this situation. And I don't think you can't ask the Ukrainian people to do that, to say, sorry, you can't react in this situation. You want to call for peace, but at the same time, the situation begs for action. And that was the question I asked the participants. What does that action look like? And how violent does it get? And I don't actually know the answer to that. That's the reason I threw it out there for the participants, because I don't know. My gut reaction to it is that the response, it's necessary at some points to push back and to maybe, I hate to say this out loud, to violently push back against aggression like that. Mm-hmm.
Well, you were quoting Malcolm X in your class. You say non-violence is fine as long as it
works. Yeah. And I think Gandhi would agree with that too. I think Gandhi was, when he talks about action and what we're doing, he said it's got to be something that matters, and it must be something that's you're using your numbers, you're using your power to push a structural change. And I think that's what Malcolm X is getting at, is it's got to be effective. It's got to make some change.
Mm-hmm. But on the other side, you also said violence make only more violence.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit.
It's at odds with itself, isn't it? It really is, and I that's why I framed it that way for the participants, because I see the conflict and the understanding of that. I think, given the structural changes in Myanmar, for example, mm-hmm. I think there needs to be a removal of power. Power needs to move from a small military elite, military and economic elite, and redispersed throughout the society. To move power is really difficult, and a lot of leaders. A lot of world leaders are really reluctant to give it up. It happens occasionally. It started to happen in Burma in 2012. And the military itself the military leaders at that time decided that it was a better idea to move towards this democracy and move away from...
It's not usual.
Not usual. I mean, it's unusual. I think unusual in the sense that world leaders typically want more. These guys want more power rather than less. And so to change it takes a pretty dramatic individual, a pretty far-reaching, far-thinking individual to give it up. There's a lot of people throughout history who have been unwilling to do that, unwilling to give it up.
Mm-hmm. Of course, a lot about Southeastern Asia, but are you familiar with the situation in the Balkans, let's say?
A little bit.
A little bit, because let's be honest, in the last 30 years, we live in some situation which is not war, but not quite great peace. We live in some sort of democracy which is unfinished.
Yeah.
So we are growing in our minds, I guess, about for learning democracy. But on the other side, we are still in that level when nobody is practically sure. Are we ever going to take that level of democracy which is normal for the, let's say, for the West society? So maybe my question is, how long one society will need to learn,
Yeah.
to accept the differences, to understand the great idea of democracy?
It's a really good question, and I think I got asked this question in Thailand by a student. He's in a situation in Thailand where they don't have freedoms, they don't have a democracy, and he's sitting there listening to me talk about these ideas, and he says, "Well, what should I do? What should we do? And should we go out into the streets and protest? And how long should we wait for this to occur?" And there's not a simple answer to that, I don't think. But I pointed him to his neighbor next door at Burma and Myanmar, and I said, "Look, they're on the road from 1962 to the present, struggling to make this happen, to move towards a democracy. They're not there, and now since that time they've taken a great big step back." I guess I say all that to say this: I think that it's an evolution over time of education and enculturation of the ideas with the people, and that they have the power, and that they deserve the power, and that they can make good decisions. And I think probably more important than all that is that they have to participate in it. In our democracy in the United States, a lot of people don't participate. They just don't. They don't vote. They're not part of it. And that causes a pretty significant problem, and a democracy requires its citizens to be engaged, understanding, and participating. So I would say, in this region of the world, keep moving toward it. Let the narrative of what it means to have the people make decisions become part of the conversation for young people. And in that evolutionary, it will move towards that over time.
I will agree with you, of course, but about the evolution. Okay, you'll say move in evolution, but let's say that we are going in our evolution looking in the Western democracy. But on the other side, we can feel that exactly that, the Western democracy, it's like, I will not say falling apart, but it's losing some of the basic, So
sure.
We are looking in something which we were meaning that is simply perfect, and now we are seeing that it's not like that.
No, it's not. And I think that's a good point. I think that's probably worth thinking about worldwide. Yes, the American democracy, I think, was overblown in around the world and in the United States in our thinking about how it was and whether it was working, how well it was working. And now we know that it wasn't working all that well, and we had a lot of oligarchs, we got a lot of money involved, and all these problems to it. So what does that mean for us as citizens? Now we have to say, what does good governance look like for us? What do we want it to be? And I think that's a really good question, and I think it's one that needs to be mindfully and thoughtfully answered. And I think the way you answer that is you look at history. You say, what does it mean when you get an authoritarian leader? What does that look like? Is that the type of society that we want? Does this typically work out the way we think it will work out? And if you look at authoritarian leaders around the world, pick one, it doesn't matter, and say, is that the type of society that I think we would like? If it's not, then what other options are there? And Churchill's famous statement about that: democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Except the others, of course, yeah.
And I think he was right about
Find me better, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's absolutely right about that. I mean, yeah, it's terrible. and it doesn't. And it's really ugly, and it's messy in the way that we fight with each other, and we talk about our things, and our Congress is battling over this and that, and it looks terrible. And I think that's the nature of what democracy is. It's messy, it's slow, it's cumbersome, and it's ineffective too. By the way, it's not a like get things done.
Too much compromise.
Yeah, compromise is required, and it looks inefficient. But the alternative is when you look around the world and you say, well, what does this mean? What does this mean when you make an efficient government? When you give one person all this, when you concentrate the power, what do you get? And I think there are a lot of good answers around the world. I mean, just look at Xi Jinping. I think if that's the, and there are a lot of Chinese. I'm answering my question, but there's a lot of Chinese who are saying this is great. We're really liking Xi Jinping because we've got this calm veneer. Where we can do business and we can live our lives.
Yeah, but in China, if you see China, let's say 50 years ago and now, it's quite new world.
Absolutely. And a lot of Chinese will say, we're doing good, we're doing great. And then there are a lot of Chinese who are also holding up blank piece of paper to say the blank piece of paper movement a while back. Mm-hmm. They were holding up to protest the situation, or they're trying to talk about Xi Jinping as Winnie the Pooh in their social media broadcast. There are people who are upset about it as well, and the Uyghurs, I think, is a whole other subset of that that needs to be considered. Is that the type of society you want? Mm-hmm. And for some people, I think it might be. I can see where that might be, that it's attractive because it's what it achieves. The thing that I would say to people about that when they say that is that the authoritarian leader
are more effective.
They're effective. It's an effective government in some ways, but what happens is it almost always spins to where where almost nobody's happy with that situation. Mm-hmm. So over time, what happens is that it's hard for that leader to maintain power and to keep it without repressive or oppressive means. And they move in the tendencies where they will arrest large groups of people, anyone who opposes them, that sort of thing. You see that in lots of places around the world. China's a good example of that. And so it may seem on the surface as you've got a negative piece, but you don't have the positive piece of the structural pieces that are of freedom and good governance and equality and all the things that make a society worth living in.
You were talking about negative and positive piece. Please explain the positive piece.
Yeah.
I mean, peace is peace. It's better than war.
It sounds like it. It does. Okay. It does. And in some ways it is, because it's the absence of fire falling down all around you. But a positive piece goes a step further, and it says, look, we're addressing the structural issues, the structural problems of our society. We're thinking about schools, health care. We're thinking about poor children and what their needs are. We're considering the violence of poverty and what that means for kids who are living in it, or for families that are living in it. And I think that the positive piece is when you're thinking about those things that are existing in society and you're addressing those kinds of issues, not just the absence of fire and bombs and stuff.
Let's talk about United States. Now you're on the couple of weeks from elections.
Yeah.
Which for many people around the world is historical, in fact. And in my belief, American society is pretty much divided, like never before. Maybe I'm not sure, but like never before, they say. Those who are, for example, for Kamala Harris, they say if Trump wins, they will burn the world. So I don't know. On the other side, those who support Donald Trump, they say that Kamala Harris will destroy America.
Yeah.
So I was listening last 20 years what presidential supporters were speaking about their president and the other one. But it was never like this. It's like it's we or the end of the world. How is that possible for the United States?
It's a really good question. I don't know if there's a good answer to it, but I'll say this to you. I think that there's a division in our country that's been manufactured by media. Not purposely, I don't necessarily think. It's not a conspiracy.
Manufactured with media, you say?
Yeah, it's been created over time by divisions in our media, and so, excuse me, you can silo yourself in certain types of media, and live in a world where you get just the things that appeal to you and that are fit with your particular ideology and worldview. So the best way to explain this is with my students in TikTok. So my students are feeding through the scroll in TikTok, and they're getting exactly what the algorithm says they need that feeds their particular worldview. And so they see over and over that their particular worldview, whatever it is, their particular candidate or their particular thing that they're interested in, they see it over and over in their TikTok feed. So that's the way the world appears to them. So and the same thing is happening to everybody. So we're seeing the world in vastly different terms, because the way that one side sees President Trump is that the world he's going to be the end of the world if he's elected, and the way the other side is seeing is that that's happening on the other side if Harris is elected, and that's the media that we're fed, and that's the media that we're. The way to overcome that is to get outside your own media bubble and try to learn something from the other side, which is extremely difficult to do. But I think that's a large part of the calamity that you're seeing. Some of the calamity, I'll say, is also brought on by President Trump himself. I think that his nature and his approach to interacting in politics is to divide and inflame. And I think his default is, and he did this in the debates recently, his default is to go to something rather bombastic. And I think that works for him. It works for him, especially with a lot of people who support him. And I think that tends to inflame that division that you see in our country. I think that's
but Professor, there are problems in the United States which are not new, but now they are growing. Let's say, like, I don't know, problem with illegal immigrants. And especially from Donald Trump, that is quietly. He was speaking about it pretty much.
Yeah.
Like the Democrats, I don't know, they simply open the borders for everybody. So, I don't know, Elon Musk, for example, he said, like, come on, we have illegal immigrants like in millions here, and somebody even wants to give them right to vote, etc., etc. Then somebody is asking, not somebody, but a lot of people asking why Pentagon is giving so much money about weapons and everything like that. On the other side, we have victims of hurricanes, right? Or tornadoes who don't have enough support from the government.
Weapons versus aid, that sort of the question.
That is quite new for the world, let's say. What is really happening? Can you explain us?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Is it true, all of this?
Reframe that question a little for me. I'm not quite sure we're asking. What are you asking me? Is what true?
The point is that many people in USA, at least it looks like that, are not agreeing with the structural way of politics of today's government.
Okay.
They are too open-minded for illegal immigrants, for LGBT society, for and well, about Pentagon is other question.
Okay.
United States always gives a lot of money for Pentagon. So, but people will ask why we are not first, right? If I'm somebody from Ohio, I don't know, I want support from my government.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I mean, think about immigrants. I mean, that's a worldwide discussion.
We have the same thing in Europe.
Everybody around the world deals with what to do with people who are trying to escape poverty or war or the issues of their homelands or try to find a better opportunity for them somewhere else. Yeah, the issue for I think the thing about these kind of things, like with spending, for example, on weapons versus aid, or the issue of what the border looks like, whether it should be open more or closed, or who should get in or who should not get in. I think these questions are hard and complex, and they require nuance. And I think that the typical citizen doesn't give the time and effort that that the question requires. So I'm saying that it's hard to study and to think about what immigration looks like on the southern border in Texas in the United States.
Well, you're from Texas, so
yeah.
You know the problem.
So, yeah, I see the problem. And so to look at the reality of that would take some time and effort. It's easier to just point to it as a problem and to be political about that one way or the other, whatever direction you're taking, than to do the nuance of the complexity of the situation. And that's where I think the democracy it requires an engaged, thoughtful citizen who is willing to spend some deeper time, other than just like a meme or just a short, headline. I think that what I'm trying to say is issues are complex, and they require study and effort. And frankly, we don't get much of that. We don't do enough of that.
Common people don't have time for for that.
Yeah.
They want answers now.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem worldwide because when you have leaders who are willing to be a populist in nature and push these divisive ideas out there in shorthand ways, then you don't get a real policy type solution. You get just pontification, bombastic discussion about these things, which is not constructive in any fashion. It's not really fixing or even addressing the issue. It's more about who's going to have power and how they're going to get it and what they're going to do with the end, I think.
One funny question. You're from Texas, but you have German origin?
Yes.
So President Trump also have German origin?
Does he? Yes, I didn't know that.
Yes, he's from some small city in Germany. But
okay, yes, I do think I did remember that.
Yeah. There was even some TV show about that, that thing. So did that matter in the United States? For example, to support somebody because he's from same origin like you?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Italians are...
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
No?
Not too much. Identity politics is a funny thing, and you see that a lot.
Here is very important. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no.
Here is very important.
No, it's not. I don't know that a lot of Americans would even know that about President Trump. I don't think they would even know. I mean, I think they know it about Kamala Harris's ethnic background because he's making it an issue.
Yeah, if she is black or she is Indian or something
whatever.
like that.
Yes,
yeah.
right. And I think that's came up for that particular reason. Otherwise, I don't think people would know or care too much.
Well, I guess the idea of voting is to is this man or woman okay for the job?
Right.
Not what kind of origin he has or something.
Yeah, I think there are probably there's millions of Americans. I think there's probably a good portion of them who would consider that identity, sort of that ethnic identity, or that way, and think about that. I don't know how much that plays into. It'd be interesting to look at the numbers. How much that plays into like vote choice. I would doubt on the German side that for many Americans even know that about President Trump or care too much about that.
It seems like he didn't care about it.
No, I don't think he doesn't.
He's complete American, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think he's bringing up that particular origin or where that comes from. I think it's interesting to think about that, to think about where your family comes from and what part of the world that comes from, because it has the effect of making us all migrants. it shows us
that is United States, in fact, yeah.
Yeah, we all come from somewhere, yeah. And I think that's worth noting. And I think that from that perspective, it's probably worth thinking about.
So, last question for tonight. No matter who will win in the election in the United States, are you optimistic about the future of the world in, let's say, in the near future?
I'm optimistic. Yes. My thought is that the structures, the institutions, the ideas, the values that we hold, and most citizens, most in the United States and around the world, I think the things that really bind us and the things that we all can agree on, like a better world for our kids, education, healthcare, those kind of things. I think those are all things that will stay put. I don't see cataclysmic outcome that people predict from either side. I just don't. There's a good question about President Trump's personal behavior and the way that he interacts and what he says about this particular part of the world or that NATO or whatever it is he's talking about. I think those are real concerns. But I think that the institutions, I have belief in that the institutions of our government, the guardrails that are there,
they're stronger than a person.
That's right? What I'm saying. That's what I think.
Well, I guess.
I hope that's the truth, but that's my belief.
Професор Стеркен, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much too. I enjoyed it.
Почитувани гледачи, тоа беше се за вечерва од овој мој разговор со професорот од Тексас Стеркен. Се надевам дека беше интересно, барем колку и на мене. Секогаш е добро да се слушнат различни мислења, секогаш кога разговарам со луѓе кои што доаѓаат, особено од надвор, од странски земји, ве повикувам да размислувате со отворен ум, затоа што тоа е единствениот начин да се дојде до сопствен заклучок. Имајте пријатна вечер.